Kia ora koutou, Markie here. I'm sitting in an armchair today because I don't have access to the mobile studio or my usual indoor studio. So it's a good excuse to tell a few fireside rambles and just talk about some odds and sods, really. Weird things that I've experienced or interesting things that I've experienced over the course of my life. And often things that, I forget and then, remember, oh yeah, that happened, didn't it? We did that or that happened. And things also that we never thought too much of at the time, but looking back, I think, hang on a minute. So I grew up on a building site. I actually grew up was born I was born in a hospital. But the house that my parents were living in at the time was an RAF, Royal Air Force house, what they used to call a married quarter, because they were called quarters. And I lived there for about 3 years, and then my dad was coming out of the Air Force. He came out of the Air Force a bit later, but he was getting to the end of his RAF career, and obviously wanted to put some roots down, because you move around all the time when you're in the forces, as you probably know. Which he certainly did. And so he bought a house nearby, and actually bought this house before it was built. So we had the pleasure of going to see it at various stages of its construction, which is quite cool, quite nice. Although I probably didn't fully appreciate all this because I was 3 when we moved there. So they built our bit sort of quite early on, and then took quite a long time to build the rest of it. So for most of my childhood, the rest of the estate was still or half the estate, let's say, was under construction. So all us kids used to play on the building site. I mean, these days it'd be fenced off and there'd be signs, wouldn't there, and health and safety and stuff. But it wasn't back then. We used to just go in all the sort of shells of houses and play in there. And occasionally we'd get kind of told to clear off, but often the builders would just talk to us and think nothing of it. And then there was a place that we called the Dump, which was quite a big area, not massive, but a sizable area, where it was the last place they developed, and they would they dumped soil there, and they would put materials there, but mainly it was it was literally where they dumped stuff, and they dumped a lot of like topsoil and things like that there. So it was all undulating. It was all hills, hills and little hills and dips and stuff like that. It was a great place to play. I had my first kiss there when I was about 6, I think. Probably a bit older than that. I was probably about 7. I had my first kiss there in the dump, and that's what I'd say to my parents. I'm going down the dump. That's what we used to say. And right opposite a place that had not long been built, where a mate of mine lived, we were playing there, and they had actually started to build the footings for the houses that were going to be on that place. And obviously now it's all housing and stuff like that. And there were some trenches which were higher than our heads. They're quite deep trenches. So we thought, obviously, as a kid, you think, oh, that's a great idea, let's walk along that trench. And of course, obviously it's a really dangerous place to be, because they could fall in and just bury you, and you'd be dead. But in the side of the wall of the earth wall of the trench, we spotted, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 bones, but it was like a long bone. And we were able to pull it out. I actually took it to school, kind of thing. I like kind of nature table, kind of always an interesting thing. I took it to school. And we never found out what it was, or what it came. But I think looking back, I think that was human. I think it was a femur, which is the top bone of a leg. It looked a bit like that. So I think we might have found human remains, so it's interesting. And on a similar note, somebody, again, this is while I was at primary school, which is in the same village. It's all very kind of parochial and folksy and homely. So one of my one of my peers had been messing around in the graveyard and I found some bones. And of course, you know, again, picked them up and, you know, brought them home rather than leave them where they are. You know, human remains, just leave them in a graveyard, leave them where they are. The finger bones, and they brought them into school as well, and they you know, got put on the nature table, the death table, the altar to death. So it's no wonder I'm so gothic now, that these things in my childhood. And then I remember there was a rumor that went around that, you know, they were cursed. You know, there was a curse associated. There's no reason to suggest that there was a curse, but you know, somebody suggested it, that if you touched them you were cursed, and that kind of scared everyone. Same thing, there's a rumor in the village that there was a killer on the loose as well. Nobody ever got killed, but there was a killer, and everyone would talk about the killer and stuff like that. And I remember you know, being very excited by that and doing lots of detective work to try and find this killer. And I think I wrote little books with kind of information about this killer, but I'll save that for another video, I think, because I've got some stories about that as well. But yeah, bones, you know, were they human? And nobody kind of said, oh, you better notify the police, that might be human bones. It was just like, oh, that's interesting. I think the assumption was that it probably came from an animal. It was all fields before, so I thought it probably came from a cow, but I think there could well have been human remains that I found and stumbled upon as a child. So there you go. So what I should say at the end of this video, which I haven't said for a while videos, is this is a channel about retroactive jealousy, which is a under-recognised mental health condition. And the purpose, the role of the channel, the mission of the channel is to get helpful information out to sufferers and their partners. So, but we talk about other stuff as well, because we can't just talk about retroactive jealousy, because it would just be scraping the barrel. And with a YouTube channel, you have to do regular videos. You can't just do a video once every couple of months or something like that. It just doesn't work with YouTube. So you have to make videos about other stuff. And I mean, I've got lots of interests, and I've come across lots of interesting things in my travels. So so we make videos about all sorts. But the reason we're here is to help people. I'm a psychotherapist. We provide therapy for this condition and for other things. So we're here for hopefully do some good. So just by watching this video to the end, even though it's not about retroactive jealousy, you are tickling the I'm gonna make a little tickling gesture, tickling the YouTube algorithm, which makes YouTube share all our videos more widely. So therefore, the ones that are kind of life-saving information for people with this horrible condition, you know, guidance on how to start getting well, they get shared more widely and get to people that, you know, maybe didn't even know that it was a condition, and certainly didn't know that help was available and that you can get well. So just by watching to the end of this video and all your kind support and doing things like liking and subscribing and all that malarkey helps us and helps them. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next one. Rangimarie.